Hi, friends. This is Eddie with Heart for Healing Ministries. And in this video, what I would like to do is I would like to talk about the battle that we're fighting, the war within. We're all fighting a battle. We're all going through some sort of struggle. We're all fighting a war. But the war that we fight isn't what we think it is. The battle that we're fighting isn't what we think it is. We often think that our problem is our circumstances, it's our situation, it's what we're going through. We often think that we're fighting the people around us. The people around us need to change. My job's the problem. My coworkers are the problem. My boss is the problem. We think we are fighting a war with each other, the world, our circumstances, God, or the devil. But the truth is, we're not fighting each other. We're not fighting God. We're not fighting the devil, but we're fighting a battle within. We're fighting a battle involving the inner critic. We're fighting an inner battle, a spiritual war of self-doubt, fear, resentment. And we often let these things, our fears, our fear of failure, dictate the story that we'll live. And we'll usually talk ourselves down so much that we never even give ourselves a chance. We'll let our resentments lead us to do things and say things that we'll ultimately regret. And we'll just give up and throw away the good things that we got going for us because we'll let our resentments and our fears be the world that we live in. And when we're living in that world, we see the world around us that way. And that's how we live our life. You'll wake up and you'll be tired. You'll be too tired to go to work. You'll be late to work, and then you'll let that single mistake, that small little inner battle of, man, I messed up and there's no turning back now. And you'll let that one mistake lead to a bad day at work, and then a bad day at work turns to a bad week, right? And then that bad week turns into a bad month, into a bad year. And, you hate your job and you hate you, and, you're just upset, miserable, irritable, restless, and discontent. And the thing is it doesn't have to be the case. We don't have to let that inner battle, that narrative play out and be the story that we live by. We can change the story. We can change the narrative with a few simple tools. It's an awesome quote by Zig Ziglar that talks about the importance of our attitude. He says, our attitude ultimately determines our altitude, not our aptitude. Think about that for a second. It's your attitude, not your aptitude, that ultimately determines your altitude. In other words, you don't have to be the best at what you do. You don't have to be better than the people around you. You don't have to compete with the people around you. You don't have to be the best. You just need to have a better attitude. And a lot of times what happens is if you can have a really positive attitude and you can be grateful for the things that you have and just simply keep showing up, go to work on time, grab the broom when things get slow, and just do everything that you can the best and compete with yourself and just focus on you and bringing that positive attitude into your situation and a learner's mindset. You'll end up being far more successful than the people around you just by having a good attitude. And a lot of times that's just simply the case. At my last job, I was doing that actually, and I had no experience when I first started. I just started grinding the really small parts, and I just kind of kept showing up. And all the people that were working there had been working there for years, and they had so much more experience. They'd been doing some of this, the welding and the grinding and these things all of their whole life. And I'm just starting, and I'm just new, and I don't really have anything going for me, and I'm just humble. And I just do what I'm told. I keep my head down, and I just try to have this really good attitude. And sure enough, I just kind of kept showing up. And I was never the best grinder. I was never the best welder or anything like that. But I just maintained faith, and I gave it my best shot. And I tried to have the best attitude I could have and just trust God. And sure enough, what happened people were pleased with me. My boss would come up and talk to me and says, "Hey, you ever thought about welding?" I got a chance to do the welding. And there's this one particular battle that I had to fight at this job. And what that battle looked like is I was finally made my way to welding the big ticket items. And what's cool too is I was making the money to prove it, and I had all this positive feedback from my boss. And I was making more money than people that have been doing it a lot longer than me. You had people that were welding for over 10 years, and I was making more money than them. And it wasn't because I was better, it was because of my attitude. And that's the point that I want to continue to drive home in this video, is the importance of having a good attitude and maintaining that faith. Um, and what happened is I was welding the big ticket items, and what happened, they bring this new guy in, and this new guy takes my job and they throw me back down on the grinder. And I had this huge resentment. I felt super hurt. I felt super betrayed, and I didn't know what to think. My boss didn't say anything to me. And they just gave this new guy that never worked a day in his life before, they gave him my job. And I'm trying to figure out what I did wrong, because I'm doing everything that they told me to do. They just said to keep doing what I was doing. And all of these thoughts, this inner battle is raging within me, and I have this resentment, and I feel hurt, I feel betrayed, I feel like a victim. I don't want to know what to do. And it's like, I go talk to my boss, and I want to act on these fears and these insecurities, right? And whenever we're in that place of fear and insecurity, man, I have never, ever acted out of fear and insecurity and been pleased with the outcome and the decisions that I've made. It's not a good place to live, and it's not a good place to make decisions. And sure enough, for the first time in my life, I did not act out of fear and insecurity, man. What I did was I prayed. And this is the next video is going to dive deeper into this, but this is our best tool for fighting the inner battle, the war within, the battle of doubt, of fear, of insecurity, and resentment. And so what I did is I prayed for that guy. I prayed for God to bless that welder. I went over and I looked at his work, and I was like, man, dude, you're a good welder. You're good at what you do. I prayed for God to bless and prosper my boss. And then I started following it up with a bunch of action. I started bringing food and drinks and stuff like that. And, I just loved on him. And what happened is sure enough, my circumstances didn't change. I never got my job as a welder back. No supernatural prosperity came upon the workplace or anything like that. We were often slow a lot of times too during that time of year. And but what happened is my heart changed. I eventually came to feel my prayers, right? And so I didn't change God, I didn't change my circumstances, but prayer changed me. And ultimately, what I want to talk about in the next video, when we dive a little bit deeper into what prayer is, it's not what you think it is, how it works, and how you can better take advantage of prayer and weaponize it and utilize it much more effectively to accomplish your dreams, your aspirations, fight that inner battle and win that battle of resentment, and make it through to get to the blessing that ultimately comes on the other side of winning that battle. When you win on that battle on the inside, you often win the battle on the outside. And you see what was happening is they were transitioning me out of the shop altogether, and they made me a truck driver, even though that I was actually the person with the least amount of experience. I had only just got my license for the first time ever. I had only just got my first car, no driving experience. And, I wound up being a truck driver and driving to and from Seattle every single day. And you'd think that they'd want somebody with a little bit more experience. But to further drive home the point, it's like it wasn't about my aptitude and my particular skill set that enabled my success at that job. My success came from my attitude, my perseverance, and the faith mindset that I brought to that table. And prayer was really how I did it. It was nonstop prayer. It was nonstop thanking God and praying for that heart of trust, right? And loving these people through it, not because they needed to be loved or they were doing anything wrong, but my heart posture depended upon me loving them so much. The Bible talks about overcoming evil with good. And I had to ask and pray like I'd never done before. And what that did is I didn't necessarily think my way into a better way of living, but I lived my way into a better way of thinking. And my prayer life and my actions helped cultivate that positive heart of love and thanksgiving as I went to live it out and give that job my best shot. And the best part is that can absolutely work for you every single time as well. And so what I really want to drive home is prayer is going to be our most powerful tool in the battle of the inner self, that self-doubt, that fear, that resentment, that insecurity. or you can use prayer to overcome that battle, win the battle on the inside, and ultimately win the battle on the outside to get through whatever battle it is, to get to the blessing that comes from victory. And so thank you for watching this video. Please stay tuned. Pretty soon we're going to have the next video, which is ultimately about prayer isn't what you think it is. We'll dive deeper into prayer, what it is, how exactly it can work, not work. Are we always praying? You know, are there different types of prayers? Are there some ways of praying better than others? And you know, how can we actually take advantage of this tool to be the most effective people that we can be in our walk in this world and with God? Thank you for listening.